Hold it to the light, and something strange happens. A woman's face turns toward you. Crowned in oak leaves. Caught mid-breath, as if she just spoke a word you didn't quite hear. Flip it over, and a rooster stands guard. Wings half open. Chest out. Ready to crow at the first sign of trouble. This is not just gold. This is a nation, struck in metal, small enough to hide in your palm. This is the story of the French 20 francs gold coin, the Rooster. To understand this coin, you have to understand the France that made it. By the final years of the 1800s, France was a republic still proving itself. The Third Republic, born out of defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, born out of the collapse of an empire, had spent decades trying to convince its own citizens, and the world, that it was here to stay. Monarchies had risen and fallen. Emperors had crowned themselves and been exiled. And through every change of government, one thing stayed remarkably consistent: French money still carried the faces of kings and emperors. So the question facing the Republic was simple, but heavy with meaning. If France no longer belonged to a king, whose face should its money carry? The answer wasn't a person. It was an idea. Her name was Marianne. Marianne has no birth certificate. No grave. She was never a queen, never a saint, never an empress. She is an allegory, a symbol given a human face. Born out of the French Revolution, she came to represent something the Republic could not put into a single word: liberty. Reason. The will of the people, standing where a monarch once stood. By the late 1800s, Marianne's image had already appeared on coins, statues, and stamps across France, but never in one definitive, unforgettable form. The Republic needed her portrait finalized. Needed her to look like the soul of a nation, not just a sketch in a coin catalogue. That task fell to one of the era's finest metal engravers, a man named Jules Clement Chaplin. Chaplin wasn't a coin designer chasing a paycheck. He was a sculptor of portraits, famous for capturing the character in a face, the tilt of a chin, the set of a jaw, the quiet authority in someone's eyes. The Republic commissioned him to engrave Marianne's profile for a new gold coin, one meant to replace the older Republic designs that had used angels and allegorical figures with less staying power. Chaplin gave her a right-facing profile. A crown, not of jewels, but of oak leaves, a symbol that stretches back to ancient Rome, where oak wreaths were given to those who had saved a citizen's life, or defended the state itself. Around her head, the words République Française, French Republic, wrapped like a halo made of ideology instead of light. This wasn't a queen. This was the Republic, wearing the closest thing it had to a crown. But Marianne needed a counterpart. And for that, Chaplin reached even further back than the Revolution, all the way to the Romans, and a simple coincidence of language. The Latin word for rooster is Gallus. The Latin word for the people of ancient France, the Gauls, is also Gallus. One word, two meanings, and somewhere across 2,000 years, the rooster quietly became a symbol of the French people themselves. The Gallic rooster, le coq gallois, had floated around French identity for centuries, in folklore, in revolutionary imagery, on weather vanes atop village churches. But it had never appeared, officially, on a piece of French gold currency. Not until now. On the reverse of this coin, Chaplin placed the rooster standing tall, wings lifted, surrounded by the words liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, fraternity, the founding motto of the Republic. Below, the denomination, 20 francs. A woman who represented an idea. A bird that represented a people. Together, they would travel into pockets, vaults, and trade routes across the entire world. In 1899, the Monnaie de Paris, the Paris Mint, an institution so old it had been striking coins since the year 864, began producing this new 20 francs gold piece. It replaced the previous gold franc design, which had featured a different, more classical allegorical figure. The rooster coin was leaner, sharper, more modern in its symbolism. It carried 0.900 fine gold, 90% pure, with a total weight of roughly 6.45 grams, just over 1/6 of a troy ounce. In its very first year, 1899, more than 1.5 million of these coins were struck. And that was only the beginning. As France's economy expanded into the new century, demand for gold coinage exploded. By 1907, in a single year, the Paris Mint struck more than 10 million 20 francs Rooster coins. Year after year, the presses ran. Coin after coin, all carrying the same woman, the same bird, the same promise stamped into precious metal, that this piece of gold was worth exactly what it said it was worth, anywhere it traveled. What made the Rooster different from older European gold coins wasn't just the artistry. It was its purpose. This coin was designed to move. To circulate. To be carried by merchants, farmers, soldiers, and bankers alike. Its size, small enough for everyday transactions, yet substantial enough to hold real value, made it one of the most practical gold coins ever produced by a major European power. Unlike many coins of its time, the 20 francs Rooster carried no mint mark distinguishing one workshop from another. Every coin, regardless of exactly where in France it had been struck, told the same unified story: one republic, one design, one symbol of trust. For 15 years, this coin became something close to a universal language of value, accepted, recognized, and trusted not only within France, but across borders, wherever gold itself was respected as money. And then, in the summer of 1914, the world that had built this coin came apart. World War I erupted across Europe, and with it came a tidal shift in how nations handled their gold. Currencies were pulled from circulation. Reserves were hoarded. Production of new gold coinage, including the Rooster, came to an abrupt stop. The year 1914 became the final year stamped onto a newly minted 20 francs Rooster coin. 15 years of production, millions upon millions of coins, simply stopped. But stopping production didn't mean disappearing. If anything, the chaos of the coming decades only deepened this coin's legend. Through the trenches of the First World War, and the occupation and turmoil of the Second, the 20 francs Rooster did something remarkable for a piece of currency. It kept its value. While paper currencies were printed into devaluation, while entire monetary systems collapsed under the weight of war debt and inflation, gold coins like the Rooster remained a quiet, portable form of security. Families held on to them. Some buried them. Some carried them across borders, sewn into linings or hidden in luggage, as a final form of wealth that no government decree could simply erase. This is, in many ways, the truest test of any coin's legacy, not how beautifully it was designed, not how many were struck, but whether people trusted it enough to protect it when everything else around them was falling apart. The Rooster passed that test. By the time the world had moved past 2 global wars and into the modern economy, the 20 francs Rooster had quietly transformed. It was no longer primarily a coin you spent. It had become a coin you kept. Collectors began to seek it out, not necessarily for rarity, since millions had survived in remarkably good condition, but for what it represented. A tangible artifact of the Third Republic. A piece of Belle Époque France, struck in gold, untouched by the inflation that eroded so much of the era's paper money. Today, the coin sits in an interesting place in the numismatic world. Because so many were produced across those 15 years, most examples, even genuinely old, original strikes, trade close to the simple value of their gold content rather than commanding huge collector premiums. And in a strange way, that's part of its charm. This isn't a coin locked away as an unreachable rarity. It's a coin almost anyone can hold a piece of real, century-old history in their hand. Look closely, and the coin tells you everything, if you know where to look. On the obverse, Marianne's profile, facing right, oak leaves woven into her hair, the words République Française curving above and behind her. Near her neck, often, you'll find the engraver's signature, Chaplain, a small, quiet credit for the man who gave the Republic its face. On the reverse, the Gallic rooster, wings raised, standing in profile. Around it, liberté, égalité, fraternité, and below, the denomination, 20 FCS. The date sits at the bottom, anywhere from 1899 to 1914, marking exactly when, in that brief golden window before the war, this particular coin came into the world. Around the very edge, a reeded border, a security feature as old as coinage itself, designed to make it instantly obvious if a coin had been shaved or tampered with. Every detail, intentional. Every symbol, chosen to say something about who France believed itself to be. So why does a coin like this still capture attention, more than 100 years after the last one rolled off the press? Maybe because it sits at a perfect intersection, between art and economy, between symbolism and survival. Chaplin didn't just engrave a currency. He engraved an argument, that a republic could have a soul as recognizable, as enduring, as any king's portrait ever was. And the rooster, half folklore, half wordplay from a dead language, became, almost by accident, one of the most recognizable unofficial symbols any nation has ever carried into the modern world. This coin watched the final years of the Belle Époque. It watched the guns of August 1914. It watched empires fall and a new century rise. And through all of it, it simply kept being exactly what it was made to be, a small, golden promise, that some things, value, trust, identity, could survive what governments could not always guarantee. So the next time you hold a 20 francs rooster, feel its weight in your palm, the same weight a farmer, a soldier, or a banker once felt over 100 years ago. Look at Marianne. Let her remind you that ideas can wear a human face. Look at the rooster. Let it remind you that even a coincidence of language can become a national symbol, if a people decide to believe in it long enough. This has been Coin Legacy. Every coin carries a story. We just have to know how to listen.